So today I'm going to tell you about why I am pissed off. So I had a guy come to me who thought he was doing the right thing, and he genuinely was like, Liv, I tried, and he tried to get the right expert advice, and now his entire wealth portfolio is really completely paused, or he has to completely undo where he's at. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the importance of understanding who you hire to have on your team and what their scope is and their role is, and different questions to ask them, okay, and context. So this is a common problem that I'm seeing, and it's sad. So for context, this guy came to me. He owned one property, which was his home, and the second one he just bought through advisors. And that next purchase that he'd already settled on before he met me has kind of fucked his borrowing capacity, and I'll explain why. So he went essentially in the property industry. This is non-financial advice. You need to go seek an advisor. So there was a really cool strategy around using trust. It's becoming a lot more commonly known, and it's a really great way to help protect your borrowing capacity. Please do your research. This is non-financial advice. I have a complete training video on that separately. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because that second property that he purchased has now really done one over on his borrowing capacity. He originally had $500,000 to work with. So the next property that he then went to go buy, that was going to be a deal or no deal. And because he didn't know me at this stage, he went and sought an accountant who told him, nah, you definitely need to own another property, your next property inside your personal name. And it's just a black and white blanket rule that this particular accountant I know, who's in the property investing industry, and he's quite famous for it. And he has this blanket dogmatic approach that no matter what, you should just own your first couple of properties inside a trust. Inside your personal name. And I'm like, no, not if it means that you cannot buy properties moving forward unless you purchase properties inside a trust. And so I'm fuming for this poor guy, because if he had actually spoken to a broker to say, hey, broker, if I buy this next property inside a trust, then what can I borrow after it? But if I'd actually, versus what could I then borrow if I bought this property inside my personal name, then what could I borrow? So I just want to let you know, when it comes to buying building your team, you need to be aware that your accountants are not wealth builders. Accountants are there to help you basically be a compliance checker for the ATO. They're there to help you reduce your taxes, but they're not there to help you build your wealth, and they don't really care about your borrowing capacity. But unfortunately, in this world that we're in, accountants are the only licensed people to set up trusts. So it really sucks. So I wish brokers had the license to set up trusts. It would help. However, what this means is you've got to make sure that you're providing context and setting the goal for your accountants to say, hey, look, I want you to let me know what are the pros and what are the cons, right, Mr. Accountant? But then you also need to go to your brokers to ask your brokers, hey, what are the pros and what are the cons from a lending perspective, right? Because if you are going to get stuck after your next move on your borrowing capacity, and this guy's borrowing capacity was $500,000 to begin with. I'm getting my broker to run his borrowing capacity next, although I'm getting an update on it, and I think his borrowing capacity is going to be too low. It's probably going to be sitting around $300,000, I anticipate, which means he's really stuck on his borrowing. Now, yes, we can undo him there's a bunch of different ways, but all of the undoing of shit work is shit. It's going to be pushing shit. It's not ideal. Can he be unstuck? Yes, but the things that we now have to do are going to cost money, which means he either has to sell one of those properties now to then replace them with properties inside his personal name, which is going to cost money. To put properties inside a trust. So there's some different ideas. Or he has to wait for interest rates to come down, which is an opportunity cost on its own because he has a debt equity there. So I'm going to be working with him closely on next steps. There are some things that we can do, but the last property that he purchased, and he'd spoken to buyer's agents and he'd spoken to an accountant and he thought he had the right advice, but he wasn't asking the right questions to the right experts. So it's the reason why he's come to me now. So I'm now going to make sure that moving forward, he has the right people. And most importantly, he's going to be asking the right questions as well, which is quite vital. So understanding the objective of who you're hiring and what is it that they are there to actually help you with. Because if an accountant is just there to help you reduce your taxes and they don't really care about your borrowing capacity, you then need to make sure that you're pulling in. As an investor, we are essentially architects. So for context here, I used to be an app developer. Well, not an app developer exactly. I was a business analyst building apps and building systems and tools for agents on the ground. So I used to work at Optus for 12 years. And the last 3 years I was there, I was in technology. I spent 18 months building systems and tools for agents overseas, so CRMs. And then I also used to build the actual Optus app itself. And so my job is very similar to what I used to do in the corporate world. What I used to do in the corporate world is now very similar to your role as an investor. So your role as an investor is to be an architect. What the fuck does that mean? So that means essentially you need to go to a bunch of different experts who are niched in certain things and grab their perspective and their pros and cons and their considerations. And then you then need to gather all of that information, so their opinions. So for example, in the investing world, you go, okay, so I've got the accountant's opinion, I've got the broker's opinion, I've got the buyer's agent's opinion, I've got my coach's opinion, right? And then you then need to ladder up with all of their opinions or risks or concerns or considerations or dependencies or assumptions. And it's your job as the investor to make the call at the end of the day. But you need to understand the scope and the role and their objectives of who you're getting that information from. It's very, very critical. And also making sure that the experts that you're hiring aren't just experts at, buying one house. Because if your goal is to build an entire portfolio, then you want to make sure that you have an accountant, a broker, and buyer's agent, that all of them are experts or niched in scaling large portfolios. And specifically then scaling large portfolios that are following a particular strategy that you are. Excuse me, that you are. So it's vital to make sure you're asking the right questions and then you ladder up to be the architect to make the decision at the end of the day. So if you want help on that front, reach out, let me know. I'd be happy to help you.